get the gang together. We had kind of a large panel tonight because of the topic. We are now going to be discussing the Kyle Rittenhouse anniversary and just some new developments. Thank you everybody for coming in. I know we have some more people that have been invited. I don't know when they'll be here, but we have a bunch of people already in the back now waiting to go. So I'm going to bring them on one at a time, have them introduce themselves, and starting with my co-show host, Liberty Unleashed. Hey, Brian, what's up?
Hey, my man, how's it going?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's good to have you on. You're going to get to, hang out with some, Kyle Rittenhouse controversy celebrities. So, and
Yeah,
then,
I'm excited about this episode. This is these kind of conversations, particularly when it comes to self-defense and the Second Amendment. Those kind of things are my favorite kind of conversations. I think this is rather important, to continue to talk about. I know Kyle is still being sued, I guess, in the civil courts.
right.
Obviously we know what the verdict was, and it's interesting to still go around social media and watch the amount of people, even after the verdict, who still make claims like, he carried the gun across the state illegally, all the stuff that we've heard and try to debunk, but nobody wants to listen. So,
Right.
it's going to be a great show.
Yep, it's going to be a great show. And anybody who is not already, if you liked my content, make sure you also subscribe to Liberty Unleashed. You can click on their link and the link of everybody's channel. I don't think Ann has a channel yet, but everybody else is down here. You guys can find them all here. So I'm going to bring on our next one. Welcome, Nathan DeBruin, also known as Photo Chad.
Hello, how's it going? Thank you for
Good to have
me
you back on V Radio, man. So
Meet you for the first time.
can you tell everybody, just for those of you who, don't remember, what your whole part in this was, real quick? Kind of introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm excuse me, an amateur photographer. I was down at the riots that happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin during August 23rd through the 25th of 2020, and I captured a lot of events that were actually a lot of photographs that were actually used in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial.
All right. So moving right along, we're going to bring on Kevin Mathewson. Hey, Kevin, what's going on?
What's up, my man? How you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. Welcome back to V Radio and also Liberty Unleashed. Can you remind everyone? I mean, you were part of the Kenosha Guard, and you're behind the Kenosha County Eye. Go ahead and tell us what's up with you.
Sure. My name is Kevin Mathewson. I live right here in Kenosha, Wisconsin. My city was the one that was one of many that was being burned, rioted, and looted back in the summer of 2020. I'm a private investigator and security contractor, and I was an alderman for the city of Kenosha for 2 terms, elected in 2012 and 2016. And after watching my city burn for a couple of days, I put a call out to armed citizens to defend our neighborhoods and homes and businesses. On August 25th, later that evening, would be an infamous day in Kenosha history. And I'm also the founder of Kenosha County Eye. So after I put that call to arms out on Facebook, Zuckerberg took my Facebook from me, so I had to find a different way to communicate with the public. And so was formed Kenosha County Eye. And I have about 120,000 monthly users. So it's getting pretty big.
Yeah, I think one of my favorites was the video where you linked the, what was it, MSNBC getting caught trying to follow the jurors home. That was probably like one of the biggest, biggest things you ever blew up. That was pretty awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and bring on our next one, if he's still here. Oh, where did Johnny go? There we go. Here's Johnny. Hey, Johnny Walker Dread.
It froze again on the other box. I can't believe I'm having this problem. Amazing.
Yep. Well, hello out there. He is trying to get through. Yep.
Yeah. Is it my turn to speak?
Yeah. That's why I brought you on.
Oh, okay.
go ahead and tell them who you are. And, Johnny Walker Dread's channel is another one, guys. If you haven't subscribed to it, you should totally check him out. He does a lot of fantastic content, not just on Kyle Rittenhouse, but on the Second Amendment and lots of other awesome stuff. So go ahead and tell them who you are, Johnny.
Yeah, I'm Johnny Walker Dread of the Johnny Walker Dread Show, a YouTube channel that devotes primarily towards critical thinking, major events, especially with police brutality. And I've covered the Kenosha shootings pretty thoroughly now since the shootings. I have around 300 videos on the shootings. And lately I've been spending a lot of time with the Jason Klopfer shooting in North Carolina. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, come on over and subscribe to my channel.
All right. So next guest today is the one, the only, the famous, the plucky, Anne, also known as Grambo. Welcome back to V Radio. Can you hear us? Anne? Calling Anne. Hello? Anne, you're on.
I think she's trying to talk, but her I think
Maybe
her
the microphone isn't working right?
yeah,
It could be.
mic is muted on her
There,
end.
I think I got it.
There you
There
go.
we go. Cool.
We can hear you.
How you doing, Ann?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
A late in here.
Testing. Could you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's just a late internet here and
Oh, that's
connection issues.
okay.
So, hi guys.
Well,
Hi Johnny. Hi Neil. Hi Nate. Love your flag. Hey Kevin.
well, it's great to have you back for sure.
Hey, darling, how are you?
Can you remind everybody, like,
Good,
who
good,
you were in
good.
this situation? I mean, I know you were present. You were present that night, so go ahead and share with everybody who you are.
Yeah, we went down to Kenosha to help business owners their businesses after the first night of unrest and burning of all the vehicles. We went down and helped. I'm sorry for the name of the car. But we went and protected the car dealer.
Car Source.
Kyle was at. We met him. Car Source. That's it. We met Kyle there, and we all walked down to the other Car Source area, and we stood together for the night until the incident happened, and we were there to help out. I do want to say, and I mentioned this yesterday, somebody asked me about it. I don't think there was one true protester in the group. I think they were all honest or just angry people looking for something to destroy, because every single one of them was violent. That, from what I
Right.
hear, Kevin reached out to me. Took me a while to reply, but I did. And with Neil as well. Neil got me talking, and
Yeah,
and
that
then
was a great show.
I met Nate.
That was definitely a great show. And what was crazy about it is that all you did with me was you talked to me about it, and like Google would not let me buy any ads. And it said it was due to shocking content. Like, we didn't play any video. We didn't do any. We just talked about what happened that night. And like, I was the only one who got an interview with you when
No,
all the mainstream media was trying to get their hands on it. And so I figured, oh, this will be great. It'll help, blow up my channel. And then Google did not want your interview to be circulated, and they wouldn't even let me pay them to do it. So I got one more guest that I want to introduce. Friend of the show, Winning Reality. Welcome to V Radio.
How's it going? Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Sorry about forgetting the link. I thought I had already sent it to you, so now we're good to go, though. So
no worries, man. We're on it.
But go ahead and tell everybody about your channel.
Hi, everybody. Winning Reality. My channel is about an idea called solution culture. And what we do is we kind of go through and root out the root cause of issues and talk about and discuss root cause solutions. And in that, I have about 4 shows right now. I have a Tech Reality Tuesday, I have Unveiling Reality on Wednesday, which is like my deep dive show, kind of the advanced class where we go back through the essence of mind control and all the different mechanisms that kind of hold corruption in place and hold us down in society, and look at what are the root cause solutions to that. On Thursday, I do a show with Gary Lamb called Repairing History Together, where we use the work of Thomas Sowell to repair history, the omitted parts of history, and then we discuss racial division and how to heal that, and also bridging the gap between communities. And then on Saturday nights, I do Winning Saturday Night, where I usually have guests, and then we just the topics or whatever. In fact, Liberty Unleashed was my last guest this last night. He was on, and we had a senator drop in. Senator Eric Brakey dropped in, and we had a great old time last night talking about the Ron Paul days.
Yeah, it was a lot of reminiscing there about Ron Paul and everything that went on back then. That was a good show. Thanks, man.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Anytime, man. Love to have you back.
My plan was eventually at some point to watch my old video, but I wanted to give you guys some opportunities to discuss like more recent things that have happened. I did the video thanks to Kevin's reporting. Actually, I was able to do the video about Zeminski finally going to jail. Kevin, do you want to go ahead and talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll kind of sum up the Zeminski debacle. As everybody knows, he was the fellow who shot his gun up in the air just seconds before Kyle had to shoot and kill his first attacker, Joseph Rosenbaum, the child sex predator, pedophile. And he also was seen and photographed by Nate, actually, starting fires, spreading fires. He lit a dumpster on fire. He lit a trailer on fire. If everybody knows and remembers, he was first charged only with disorderly conduct. That was his only charge at first, and it was a misdemeanor, punishable by up to 90 days, but disorderly conduct rarely gets a jail sentence. And it was a stupid charge. It was way undercharged. Actually, last 4th of July here in Kenosha, a little 13-year-old girl had her foot mutilated by a falling bullet because idiots were shooting guns up in the air. So obviously shooting a gun up in the air is criminally reckless, not just disorderly. But after the community pushed back against Gravely, he ended up charging him with felony arson, resisting arrest, and I think obstructing. And then he got bail, him and his wife. And then while out on bail, they burglarized a man. They robbed him at knife point, took him around the city to ATMs, tried to get money from him. And they were caught and arrested and charged for that. Our friend T. Claire Binger, who tried unsuccessfully to prosecute Rittenhouse, gave him a plea deal where all of Zeminski's riot-related charges were all dismissed. So he didn't have to receive any type of punishment for shooting his gun in the air that night or starting fires. Instead, he was given, Bruce Schrader, the judge who presided over Kyle Rittenhouse's trial, gave him a very, very uncharacteristically low sentence, 3 years in prison. So for, breaking into a man's home, kidnapping him, holding him at gunpoint, forcing him to withdraw money from an ATMs, beating him senseless, threatening to kill him and bury him. Only 3 years in prison. I know, a lot of people are happy he's going to prison. I am, but I wish it would have been more, to the tune of 10 or 20 years. But Zeminski's wife got 20 months in prison. But I think she has some more time from a previous revocation of extended supervision. So they'll both be in prison for at least a couple of years.
So what is it about this guy? Because I remember when I was making my documentary, his criminal record is so long, I didn't even put the whole thing in there because it would take a half hour. How does he just keep getting out of jail? And how does he keep getting these light sentences? Does he got I don't know, blackmail on somebody involved in Kenosha? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
There's no real way to tell, but in this little corridor in southeastern Wisconsin, there's 2 counties that are just riddled with crime. There is Kenosha County and Racine County to our north. both of the prosecutors are what I call progressive prosecutors, just very, very weak on crime. So this guy has been arrested and charged with felonies many, many, many times, but every time they plead it down to a misdemeanor, it's they're idealistic prosecutors, and they're also lazy prosecutors who would rather sign a plea agreement than go to trial. Um, we have a high incarceration rate in this country, but you know what? Prisons are built for people like Joshua Ziminski and his wife, people that use violence to rob from people, to break into people's homes, to set fires during riots, to shoot guns in the air. So you're right. He's got a huge arrest and conviction record, but up until his conviction here in Kenosha County, he was still not yet a felon. And the interesting thing during his sentencing, Binger told the judge that they were made aware of Ziminski selling guns as a business. So he would buy guns for felons. He admitted this on camera in the detective bureau, and at least 4 of those guns were involved in felonies. One was a murder right here in Kenosha. So Ziminski, aside from that, what we know he's done and been charged with, we also know that he admitted to selling guns to people, one of which later used that gun to murder a man named Malik Boyd at a tavern here in Kenosha. So the ATF decided not to refer charges to the U.S. attorney, and DA Gravely decided not to prosecute him for the straw purchases at the state level. So this is a bad dude. It's a bad hombre, as Trump would say. And he doesn't like me too much. His mom doesn't like me too much. And he's just a bad dude. I don't know why he keeps skating, but a couple things. I think we have prosecutors that are weak on crime and lazy prosecutors. I think that's what it comes down to.
So now, Photo Chad, Nathan, you're now allowed to talk about what happened with you and him. You want to go ahead and share that with everybody?
So to backstep a little, I did capture Ziminski and his wife, and quite a few photos. But one Binger did bring to court and tried to use as evidence, but obviously those charges were dismissed. But he did, excuse me, Binger did bring that photo still to court at his sentencing hearing. But then when Ziminski was originally still facing the charges, and one of many trial dates that were scheduled, but one of them that was in the beginning, I was actually getting out of my vehicle, or the vehicle I was getting dropped off in front of the courthouse, and Ziminski just happened to be walking up at the same time that I was, and obviously you couldn't miss the photo that I was holding. It was a humongous photo, and he wanted to see it, and then when I just kept walking, he was not satisfied. And then his mom started mumbling some stuff, but I couldn't really hear because she still had a face mask on, I do believe at the time, or a scarf. So just the altercation, Ziminski, the attitude that he presented, he tried to say that, well, I don't know who thought I was an attorney, but someone thought of that group thought I was an attorney, and Ziminski said he's not no attorney, and which Ziminski knew exactly who I was, and he just didn't want me to use that, to bring that photo to court to be used in his case, because it's clear as day that he is contributing items to that fire that was at that trailer.
So, Anne, did you ever have any interactions with Ziminski? Meaning Grambo? You're on a slight delay, I think is what it is.
Hey, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I am, and it
It's
takes
okay.
a bit for my microphone to go back on. The only did was night in Kenosha. Otherwise, any time after that, I had no commitment to see him. Not that night. I saw him and good old Rosenbaum.
Right. So that's, it's crazy to me again that, it took forever for them to get around to going after this guy. And it was one of the key things that I managed to do was to get him arrested the first time, but that isn't even what he ended up going to jail on. Like he's not going to do any time for what he did that night, as far as I know. Right. Am I wrong? Was there something
No.
he's going to jail for something else entirely, right? It's just this.
Correct.
And what's crazy
Yeah,
about
so
it, go ahead, Kevin.
So in Wisconsin, I don't know how many other states do it, but all of his riot relating charges were dismissed but read in. So that's a legal term that means obviously they won't be on his record. He's presumed innocent and it's dismissed, but read in means the judge can consider those. Well, why is because T. Claire Binger is a piece of human garbage.
Right.
I think this is his consolation prize that he lost so badly against Kyle. Is he wants to let these other, the actual real bad actors from that night go free. I think it brings him a little bit of joy. But yeah, so it's read into the record. So the judge could have considered it. He could have given him 25 years in prison. But a lot of you don't know this, but and I'm not gonna talk into detail, but Judge Schrader has had a severe medical issue. He's now better, but I really think he has a different outlook on life since his issue, and I think he's being a little bit more, showing more grace to bad people. I disagree with it, but he's the judge. He gets to make that call. He's the longest serving judge in Wisconsin. He's got the most tenure in the state. But yeah, he decided to go light on him for whatever reason. But it's my prediction he's going to kill somebody someday. And
I'm surprised.
Hope it's not me.
If not his wife.
Yeah.
Or, or
Yeah,
if maybe he has and just this guy in
he's
the
a
way
piece
that.
of
Go ahead,
shit.
Chad. Yeah, he's a piece of human garbage. And so anyway, Johnny, I know you were talking about Rosenbaum's recent lawsuit against Kyle. Do you want to go ahead and discuss that, and we'll all weigh in?
Yeah, basically Kimberly Motley, who was filing the lawsuit against Kyle on the behalf of Gage Grosskreutz. And I should be careful. She's suing a lot of people, the police departments, the county governments and all that. And Kyle originally was not named in the lawsuit, but the judge forced them to add his name to it. And Kevin Matheson, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But at any rate, she basically copied almost word for word the lawsuit filed by Anthony Huber's lawyers. And in this latest lawsuit, she has basically copied almost word for word the lawsuit she filed against Gage Grosskreutz. So if you read the lawsuit against Kyle on behalf of Jojo Rosenbaum, you'll notice it sounds very familiar because almost everything is exactly stated. And it is an absolute riot. And the other thing is, one thing that's important is she never discusses at all what the interaction between Jojo and Kyle was like. Basically, the lawsuit says that Kyle was walking and then he shot Jojo Rosenbaum. I mean, there's not much more than that to it. And again, you remember, she didn't mention that Gage Grosskreutz had a gun in his lawsuit. My gut feeling is that Jojo Rosenbaum is really going. By the way, it's the estate of Jojo Rosenbaum, which is kind of funny in and of itself.
The estate of a homeless,
right.
murderous
I mean,
criminal.
I think the estate amounts to a bag of meth and maybe a toothbrush, but yeah. So it's the estate suing. I cannot imagine them collecting anything on this. My gut feeling, and I've said this before, maybe Kevin, you might have some insights that I don't have, but I think they're just trying to shake the money tree to get some money from the counties and the police departments and then bolt. Kevin, do you think that that's kind of a fair assessment?
Yeah, a lot of cities and counties, if they get an offer from a plaintiff for 10,000, this is the wrong. This is what's wrong with the civil justice system. Is a lot of times giving somebody a check for 10 grand is going to save you maybe 100 grand, right? So, for example, there's a one of the defendants is the city of Menominee Falls, right? Well, that's a county that's 3 or 4 hours from here. They probably sent 2 or 3 officers to help or whatever they could. Likely, none of those officers were anywhere near Kyle or anybody else at that matter. So if you're the county board or the city hall up in Menominee Falls, and your attorney says, "Hey, you can write a check for 10,000. This goes away today, or we can go to court. It's going to cost us $300,000 or more to litigate this." You're right. I mean, you shake that money tree, some things come loose because you see the buzzwords in the lawsuit like weapons of war and Kyle Rittenhouse shots indiscriminately on the streets of. Well, no, he indiscriminately he shot exactly who he tried to shoot.
Right.
He was not waving a gun around, shooting randomly towards groups of people like she. And the same lies are like Johnny said are again printed. He crossed state lines with a assault weapon of war, and just she if you look at Johnny, I know you got an eye for bad grammar and stuff. I mean, her lawsuit, which is numbered, goes 1 through 10, and then it starts back over at like 8, and then there's typos, and today the statute of limitations for most civil torts like wrongful death or conspiracy, statute of limitations is 3 years. Today is the last. I'm sorry, not today. 2 days ago was the last possible day that she had to file that lawsuit. So either she was rushed and she just filed what she could, because in federal court you can amend it once for free without asking the judge permission. Either she was rushed or she did it on purpose, on the 3rd anniversary. But she somehow convinced whoever is the executor of his estate to sue, probably promising that person that she's going to make a lot of money for them, and she'll probably get a third of it, whatever it is. And it's just sad because it's a lot of government entities in this state that are going to waste a lot of money defending against the estate of a convicted child rapist who was shouting racial slurs, attacked a minor, and got shot. I mean, and that minor who stood trial as an adult was acquitted by a jury of his peers unanimously. It doesn't. I'm not a lawyer, but to me, there is no exposure by any of the defendants, and I wish they all stand strong and do not settle. And I hope this case gets dismissed, and I hope the state of that pedophile gets $0.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and by the way, I already have on my channel where I read Anthony Huber's lawsuit and I read Gage Grosskreuz's lawsuit. So if you're interested in hearing what was filed, just go to my channel and look up the videos. And I have a lot of fun with it because it's pretty funny. I mean, the way that they wrote it, and I'm not a lawyer, but I could have done better. Definitely could have done better than what I read there. What's interesting about the latest one is she files this lawsuit on behalf of Jojo Rosenbaum. In the statement of facts, she says Gage Grosskreutz was a hero, and then she says Anthony Huber was a hero. Never mentions anything about Jojo, which is kind of odd.
When they go to trial for criminal, there's usually like a pre-trial, like a hearing to determine whether it should go to trial. Is that the same thing for civil? Do they have some kind of like pre-hearing to see if it's even worthwhile to take it to trial? Can dismiss it
so
before
so with federal court, there's first there's going to be answers. So you file a lawsuit in federal civil court, then the defendants all have to answer within 2 months, or depending on if they waive service or not. And then there'll be motions to dismiss for failure to state a claim. If the suit survives the motion to dismiss, then there will be discovery, depositions, exchange of documents, evidence, videos, and then there's usually a motion for summary judgment that says, look, there's no material facts in dispute, and it asks a motion for summary judgment asks the judge to dismiss the lawsuit based solely on legal reasons. And then if it survives that, then it goes to trial. And obviously there could be a resolution, a stipulated dismissal at any point in the case.
Now,
But yeah, it has to go through a lot of hurdles before it goes to trial. So if this case were to go to trial, it could be 3 years away or more.
right. And with all the people that are named in it, Kyle and these counties, I assume they all lawyer up. If the counties settle for like 10 grand, like you said, Kyle still doesn't have to. His attorneys would normally just ask for a dismissal or a proceed and go along. Or how does that work when you have all these different people named?
Yeah, so one of these small counties or cities or police departments or sheriff's department, if they can show the judge evidence that they were not there or they were nowhere near the scene, they can convince the judge just to dismiss them alone, and that would be common. The judge could dismiss everybody except Kyle, theoretically. I mean, there are several judges in the Eastern District of Wisconsin that are pretty liberal, although I like to think that they're still reasonable. I don't see this case passing a summary judgment stage. I mean, the Grosskreutz lawsuit. So just real quick, Kimberly Motley. So she represents Gage. He's suing, Kyle and all these people. She represents the child rapist pedophile Joseph Rosenbaum. She represents Jacob Blake's uncle, Justin Blake, who was arrested for blocking the door to the police department. She represents Jacob Blake now. He's suing again the Kenosha Police Department. So if anybody knows what the term with prejudice means, he sued the city, and then his big shot attorneys agreed to dismiss the suit with prejudice. And Kimberly Motley is now suing the city again, which with prejudice means you can't sue again. Without prejudice means you get another kick at the cat if you want to refile. That's how terrible this attorney is, Kimberly Motley. And if you Google her name, there's a couple articles out there. She's actually being sued in federal court right now and being accused of kidnapping an Afghan child and abusing the court system to take custody of that child on behalf of, I believe, a former Marine. So look her up. Yeah, she's not a good person. She's a bad person. And I don't know if she's ever represented a client that wasn't a complete waste of life. She just, I don't think she's an attorney to make money. I think she does it just to help out bad people. I just think she's a bad person.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, unfortunately. I mean, like, that's how you end up with these Antifa types getting out over and over again. And then, like, if you look back at the history of the Weather Underground, I don't know if you guys remember the story recently of the San Francisco DA who got recalled because he was letting all the criminals back out. Well, it turns out he was actually the son of two members of the Weather Underground terrorist group, which is basically like Antifa plus bombs. So we've got another guest on here. I just want to be sure that, he gets in because we got a huge panel. And I want to be sure because it's also the first time I've actually been able to bring him on to talk about this topic. So, hey, Winning Reality, do you got any questions for any of the guests tonight about this issue or any comments about how, like the Kyle Rittenhouse incident impacted your thoughts about politics?
I mean, I've kind of always, I come from the point of view that everything is already kind of corrupt, and it's just more exposure of that corruption. It was making me think about the documentary that Radix Verum is working on. It's about the Fednapping hoax in Michigan with Whitmer.
Yep, I'm a Michigan resident, very familiar.
Yeah. She's doing great work with that, but she's drawing a lot of correlations about like how the Fed informant racket works, and how this is a serious problem that's going on. We didn't know about it, but I don't think a lot of people realize how many crises are manufactured, and they're on both sides. This is what we talked about when she was on it was a Saturday before last night, so a week last Saturday, and going all the way out to saying, hey, these groups that were in Kenosha doing what they're doing, they're being spun up too. I mean, that they're informants inside of these groups, as well as the groups where they try to manufacture these patriot groups, these militia groups or whatever, and they spin them up into these big organizations they're not, right? When they're mostly funded and fed infested basically throughout. So they get these informants, basically really bad people who have done things. They get them on the hook, right? And then they give them a database of people they want to target, and they go after them. And they do that with BLM and all these other groups as well. So the riots that were going on in Kenosha over that stuff spun up completely. We know they're getting spun up. But then they were like, well, how's this all getting directed? How do they find these people that are doing this stuff? How is this people like this guy that instigated the entire thing with Kyle? How does he end up there, right? And it's like these people get let out, and then they're already on the hook, right? So they're like, well, you're going to go away for life, or you're going to work for us. And then they go out there and they start infiltrating these groups, saying, let's go out there and break stuff. Let's go out there and do this. That's where these agitators come from. These people that end up creating patsies come from. And so in terms of politics, man, we got to fix that from the ground up. But in terms of what the deep state's doing and how they're manufacturing these crises that keep us divided, that keep us in a state of fear, that's the root cause issue that we really need to start focusing on. And Radix is doing a great job with her documentary. There's a Gibson go out there about it. She's trying to get it done. Everybody spread the word about this documentary and get it out. And I think that we can whittle down this problem to the point of where it's originating from, right? Our taxpayer dollars are paying for these groups to be spun up and sicked on the society.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. And it's interesting that it kind of comes up when everybody discusses. That was one of the things I want to do. We're going to review some little videos to deal with arguments that I'm still seeing now 3 years later that are just completely stupid. I mean, Johnny has a whole series called Kyle Rittenhouse Dumb Arguments. But it's very clear, first of all, that they always complain about the fact that Kyle came from out of state, but I have a video listed that it was actually ironically from an article that was anti-Kyle, but they still admitted that over 100 rioters were arrested from out of state, including some as far away as Oregon. So the obsession with, he crossed state lines, it's all very selective. I still hear all the time, people that just kind of make up theories, and I ended up making a little clip of it because I just wanted to have it on hand. And I'll just share it here, but this is about what was he there to do, and I think that this little minute long clip kind of destroys the narrative altogether, as far as they say things like he was there to kill, he was this, he was that. So let's just look at this.
From the citizens, and I just got pepper sprayed by a person in the crowd.
So you had non-lethal, but you didn't respond.
We don't have non-lethal.
So you guys are full on ready to defend the property?
Yes, we are. Now, if I can ask, can you guys step back? Medical, EMF right here. I'm an EMT. I am an EMT. Medical, EMF right here. I'm an EMT. I am an EMT.
There's a medic right here if you need help.
What is it? All right, we're going to go over here behind cover. I need cover. I need cover. Over here.
Do we have anybody who's injured? We have a medic.
I am an EMT. If you are injured, come to me.
So if he's there to kill everybody, and that was his motive, he just showed up and that was his intent. So then what the hell is he giving medical attention for to people that are supposed, and literally right after they pepper sprayed him too, his eyes are still watering from it and all that. And I played that clip to a bunch of people on Twitter today because I'm sick of this particular argument. But they invented what they thought his motives were. and nobody who actually bothered to take the time to watch all of the video would ever come to that conclusion. And I want to be clear, I don't think he was wise. It isn't something I would advise a 17-year-old to do, but he wasn't there to hurt people, and if he was looking for an opportunity to shoot someone, why didn't he do it when he was pepper sprayed? Hell, if he was there to shoot someone, why didn't he just go off into the darkness, where nobody would see him, and pop a few people off? That just, it never really sat right with me. And I know, Anne, I know that you were in the building at that point, right? Weren't you in the building that was behind him? She has a slight delay. Testing.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Go right ahead.
I don't know. This mic won't go off.
It's okay. We can hear you now. So
yes, I was in the building during that time.
Okay. And so what was the general attitude at the time? Go ahead.
I'm losing everybody internet connection. So I'm sorry. What was your question, Neil?
Just what did you feel the general energy at the time was, being as how you were present at that building?
Energy during what time?
At that moment when the crowd kept going back and forth. Yeah, that night in particular. Yep, that'll work.
It's weird asking me about energy. It's hard to describe, but I've never been so calm. So everybody else was kind of energized. I mean, everybody was on high alert. We were more energized earlier before the crowd got down to us, or you kind of put around having conversations, and I say joking around lightly, as dudes are dudes. They do that. But when I was down there was no energy. We were on alert. We were expecting the worst. We saw what they were carrying. We knew they did previously come up the street. We knew it happened the night before, so we taking it very lightly. We were taking it very seriously. So, and when everybody went down the street, when Kyle and all the guys went walking down the street before the shootings happened, I was left alone out on the ground. Everybody else was up. And all I thought was, well, this can't be too safe. But I stayed there. I stayed there for as long as I could until the police vehicles started backing up back at us. And that's when I ran inside. Everybody on the roof was telling me to run inside.
Yeah, and I remember watching.
I hope that answers your question.
No, yeah, it does. It does. It was just kind of an idea of just trying to get the mood of the evening. Nathan, were you around when the Bearcats were heading up and down the street, just kind of moving everybody around?
Yes, I was.
And so what was your takeaway from that kind of bizarre tactic? Is it just they were trying to keep them away from certain property, or?
Well, excuse me. It all started when they wanted to push everyone out of Civic Park. And when they pushed everyone out of Civic Park, it led all the protesters and everyone onto Sheridan Road, which is just a straight road that had a few barricades on it. And it seems as the police only wanted to go so far with the Bearcats. And at one point, it just became overwhelming for them, I guess the way to put it would be, where protesters, rioters were grabbing dumpsters, pushing dumpsters, lighting them on fire, and just rolling them towards them. So there's times that maybe they thought for their safety, they needed to retreat a little, but it did go back and forth. And I kind of focus in on that in my book that will be coming out of all the photos that I took from those nights.
One of the things that I found interesting is the narrative always comes back to Kyle should have never been there. Kyle should have never been there. They don't seem to mention that about Rosenbaum or the others, that they shouldn't have been there. It's always.
And I just want to
Kyle
point out real fast that Kyle's father lived here, as well as his grandparents. And so, and he did not bring that AR-15 over any border. The AR-15 was in Wisconsin. And it's funny how people still 3 years later will bring that up, that, oh, he crossed the borders or his mom drove him. His mother did not drive him to a protest armed with an AR-15. And I can promise you that. I know his mother very well. And the rumors that get spread about Kyle, his family, and other people that are involved still to this day, it's sickening. I actually just had a conversation with someone on my Twitter account that called me a mediocre white supremacist or something like that. And just last
Not
night,
a real great one. Just kind of.
and it's just like,
strive to do better.
It's just like the people don't care still to this day to hear the truth. They rather support a pedophile or someone that will physically assault their grandmother. It's sickening. Or someone that brought a gun to, like, Gage will point a gun at Kyle's head. That is uncalled for. Like,
Right.
I don't want to go into details for certain reasons to talk about that, but it's sickening what people still believe to this day, and it's sickening what certain people still have to go through to this day. And for Kyle to have to defend himself now in a court for a civil lawsuit versus people that attacked him or the states of the people that attacked him, it's sickening, the world that we live in today. And especially bouncing, I could go and say the same, right, with Joshua Zeminski. He is a sick, evil person. Sitting at his sentencing, there was someone sitting next to me in his sentencing, and that person turned to me, creeped out, and was like, he's looking at us. And I was like, he's looking at me. He probably wants to kill me at this point. And it's sickening. And then when Zeminski stood up from his sentencing and started blowing kisses to his wife that was in, I don't know what they call the back room of the courthouse, outside the courtroom, but behind the judge, that's where she was. And they're blowing kisses to each other. And it's sickening.
So
it's like Romeo and Juliet.
Right, exactly. Kevin, what I always wanted to get to the bottom of was, why were the police told just to hang back and just let all of this go on? Like, did you ever get any like answers about that? That question was for Kevin Mathewson of the Kenosha County Eye.
By the way, while he's answering, people should go to the Kenosha County Eye website. He's got a really good newspaper there, and check out his stuff. I also want to mention that I got text messages, and according to what I've received, Wendy Rittenhouse is watching the show, as well as Dominic Black's parents. So,
and I can verify.
Awesome.
I can verify that Dominic's parents are watching, and Wendy is as well. I am in contact with her as we speak.
Awesome. Kevin, are you still there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
We can.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. My Bluetooth,
Bluetooth.
All right.
I don't have my camera. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can hear you just fine. So, did you have an
Oh,
answer to the
okay.
question of
Yeah.
just like why they were told to just hang back and just let all this happen?
You know, I don't think the way that it's been in the media, I don't think. See, the people didn't see police going all the way down Sheridan Road to the south, but I really don't think there was a central leadership in place. You know, the sheriff at the time sucked. The mayor sucked. The county executive sucked. I mean, these were all people who sympathized with these people burning down our community. But the boots on the ground, the deputies and the police officers who were there were doing their best to keep everybody safe. I just, people criticize them a lot. Why are you defending just the courthouse and the police department and those buildings? Well, those are all strategies. When you fortify a position, that tends to be where the bad guys go, right? They can't be everywhere at once. There were some deficiencies in the planning purposes, like when the National Guard got there, for example. There should have been one local officer with each National Guard unit because they didn't know their way around the city, right? So now this planning is being put in place to make sure if this ever happens again, we'll be better suited to deal with what goes on.
All right. So now I wanted to ask, Winning, do you have any comments or questions about anything we've talked about as of yet?
No, I'm just listening. I know a lot of it. I watched the entire trial and just.
Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step over you there, Winnie.
Yeah,
no worries.
All right.
No, I was just saying, yeah, and you know, Photo Chat was right when he said it's just amazing that this kind of stuff can continue to go on these days. It's like I'm hoping that these, you know, even when people don't have the full story or they haven't gotten it yet, when they actually do get it, it's a moment of clarity for them to wake up and say, you know, I really need to pay more attention. I really need to find better sources of information. So maybe if there's any kind of silver lining in this, it's like, you know, there is a great chance for people to be shocked into understanding they need to do more to understand the world around them.
So
I want to respond. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, Neil. I was just going to say I want to respond briefly to this.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to do that.
Super
So
chat.
go ahead.
So, for those of you who don't understand, John Doe is a procedure in Wisconsin criminal law where citizens such as myself, I can actually petition a court, a judge, to file charges, criminal charges against somebody. I have done that. So there was this gentleman named Clyde McLemore, who was a Black Lives Matter founder in Zion. It's a city in Illinois, just south of us. He was a guy who tried to kick a door closed on one of the Kenosha police officers' hands during the riots. And he was arrested and charged with attempted battery on a police officer and disorderly conduct. He then got arrested in Illinois for disrupting a council meeting while he was out on felony bond. And nobody would bail jump him. In other words, Kenosha DA did not issue bail jumping charges against this guy. So I filed a John Doe complaint, and our judges here in Kenosha, for the most part, the judge that I filed this John Doe with is basically a rubber stamp for the DA's office, and he denied my John Doe. And then a week or two later, then charges were filed against this gentleman. So would I love to do it? Sure. However, I don't want to waste my time because everybody knows that what Grosskreutz did by bringing a concealed handgun to Kenosha, pointing at Kyle. He could have been charged with attempted murder, second degree, first degree reckless endangering safety, a slew of charges, certainly carrying a concealed weapon, disorderly conduct, pointing a weapon at a person, that's a crime in itself, and that's what it's called. So yeah, I'd love to do that, but it would go nowhere, and I'm not in the habit of picking up L's for no reason.
Yeah,
No,
and I
that's
want to
totally
step in
fair.
on this one as well. You're not going to be able to convict Gage Grosskreutz of that. From Gage's viewpoint, he can claim self-defense in this. He can simply claim that, hey, he shot a person already. I really feared for the safety. I was just trying to put a gun on him so I could disarm him. You're not going to be able to refute those in court. And quite frankly, I think that a attempted murder is way out of the question. There's no evidence whatsoever that he was trying to kill Kyle because he never pulled the trigger.
Well, don't forget though, Johnny, and I don't mean to interrupt you. Don't forget about his guilt of consciousness statements that he made after saying, "I wish I would have killed that son of a bitch," or whatever he said.
Right.
And you're right, though. You're right.
I wish I should have emptied that clip or something.
Or yeah, something like that. I mean,
but claiming that you wished that you had committed a crime isn't going to get you convicted of that crime. And so I just
and that's the thing. You got to convince 12 people, and I think you could convince 6, but never 12.
No, I mean, to be honest, and I know that a lot of people are not going to agree with me on this. I think you'd have a hard time convincing even me if I was on the jury, because again, it's proof beyond reasonable doubt, and you have to think in your back of your mind, maybe he really wasn't trying to kill Kyle that night. What do I have in front of me to convince me that such is not the case? I don't have anything. So I know I'm not supposed to stick up for Gage. I'll stick up for Gage on this one. I think he made some mistakes that night, and he might have had bad intent, but I don't have any evidence to prove that.
And remember, though, in Wisconsin, just like other states, there's lesser included. So certainly you could charge him with I don't think attempted murder is there, because if you look at the elements, you have to take a step more than just a simple step towards that crime. I mean, you have to almost complete it. That would be murder. And certainly I think he could be charged with reckless endangering safety. And then if the jury finds there wasn't evidence, you can present them with lower charges to select and choose. But yeah, it's never going to happen. The statute of limitations for a felony, I think, is 7 years, but it'll never happen. Even if we elect a solid conservative DA in 2024, because next year Gravely's gone and his number 2 is running, unfortunately. Even if you get a solid DA, I don't think it would be proper, because you have to also, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, you have to treat everybody the same. And it sets a bad precedent when you ignore someone's crime for 3 years and then all of a sudden charge him. It's just not, and it's not a good precedent to set. The DA decided against it. We got to move on. We don't like it. A lot of us think he should have been charged with at least a couple, 2, 3 crimes, but he wasn't. I'll be releasing his. I'll be releasing his new name probably in the next couple months.
By the way, I think that also the argument that he's already suffered enough is valid here. He's got almost the entire arm blown off. He didn't get away with this. He paid a price for what he did, and I think it's enough.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely paid for that. Interesting when most high-profile cases like this, you pretty much know it's inevitable for it to go to a civil case at the end of it. But I find it interesting that, particularly on Rosenbaum's estate, that they really want to go through with this. Is this normally a push through opportunistic attorneys that do that just because it's high profile? I mean, is there any more evidence, any more of a case that's going to come out in a civil case that didn't case the criminal?
Here's the thing, and looking specifically at Rosenbaum, when you have a good case for civil rights violations or wrongful death, you have high-priced, good attorneys jumping on the family every day, right? Saying, look, we'll take this case for free. You only have to pay out of what we win if we win. And this is a case where the entire 3 years have passed, and finally we get some Bush League attorney who files suit on the last possible day. if there was a claim for Joseph Rosenbaum or any path to success, a big, powerful, talented civil rights lawyer would have pounced on his family and they would have sued years ago. But the fact is, he had just been released from a mental hospital. He was a convicted child predator. Think about it. If you can get into evidence the fact that he was a convicted child predator, which almost is guaranteed, what jury do you know that's going to say, well, yeah, he raped little boys, but we're going to give his, parent who doesn't give a crap about him money because he was killed after trying to, kill a little boy. Like some people say, he died how he lived, trying to touch little boys. So yeah, I think there's 0.001% chance you can convince a jury to give this guy any money. I think Neil hit it on the head earlier when he said they're shaking the money tree. They're hoping to get a small settlement somewhere down the line. But if you think about it, if you look at these 11 municipalities, each one will have at least 2 attorneys on this case. So it'll be 22 attorneys versus 1. It's one David versus 22 Goliaths. She's not gonna win a lawsuit. She might get some type of settlement from some of these uninvolved counties. That's my prediction.
And he's still got 2 others though with Huber. Don't they have civil cases against him? He has 1 or 2 others.
All of them do.
Yeah, all 3. So the Gage, Huber, and Rosenbaum now all have lawsuits, and Jacob Blake himself now has a pending suit.
And maybe we can get some of the Black Lives Matter money out of that guy. That's just, I still cannot deal with the fact that he's a millionaire. Like, I mean, being a rapist and going to the house of your victim and violating a restraining order with an active warrant on you for said rape, and then trying to drive away with her car with her kids in it and getting shot seemed to work out pretty well for him, honestly. And
yeah, it sure did.
It's like people talking about him like he's the victim or something. He's probably the biggest piece of human garbage in all of this, other than Rosenbaum. And I just think to myself, and this is going to sound crass as hell, but if he'd have done that to my daughter, he wouldn't have gotten shot 8 times in the back. He'd have gotten shot once in the head. He's just garbage. There's no reason he would have gotten $1. Go ahead.
What's the old saying, Neil? A fool and his money are soon separated.
Right, that's totally fair. So,
do we know who the estate of Rosenbaum is? Is it his aunt? Well, whoever that lady was in court.
I'm sorry. What was the question?
Who is Rosenbaum's estate?
I don't know. I looked in the lawsuit. It doesn't mention any names. It just says the estate. I have no idea who that would be.
Yeah, probate is a complex legal thing that I know nothing about. I think they got to look to your next of kin.
Yeah, or something like that. I would also want to piggyback on what Kevin said, that you also have to show damages. I mean, let's face it. How were the parents of Joseph Rosenbaum damaged by anything that happened? I mean, it's like the father can't be. He's the one that raped his own boy and turned him into an absolute psycho. The mother threw him out when he was like 16. I mean, and then you go over to Huber. Huber's dad, who's filing the lawsuit, had nothing to do with him. Basically abandoned him when he was a baby, and then shows up magically, after the shooting and claiming that he's been despondent. I mean, that alone, they might win the case, but they might get $1 for it. I mean, because they have to show that they've also been damaged, and I don't see that happening here. Gage,
and that's why I wondered why Huber and them were advised to file the suit. I mean, did they push and say, tell an attorney, no, you need to file this, like we insist, or did somebody come to them and say, I think you have a good chance, let's go with this?
Well, with Huber has great attorneys.
Huber's aunt, not Rosenbaum.
Yeah. No. It was. Oh yeah, you're right. But as far as Huber goes, he's the only one with a very good attorney. So Huber, although he was a bad person and did many bad things to his sister, his parents. He is the only one that you could make a case that he thought he was doing something noble. Um, I don't think he was. I think he was attracted to violence and crime and confrontation, and that's why he was there, and that's why he covered his face. And I think he wanted to hit Kyle with a skateboard just because he thought, I can get away with it, and no one's going to arrest me. But he's the only one that has a shot in this civil thing because he's got good attorneys and with the right presentation, you might be able to put some kind of case on. But I mean, you when you look at the other two people shot by Kyle, they were actively trying to injure him. I guess the same could be said with Huber, but you know, who knows what Huber was what was going through his mind just before the bullet, you know.
Well, I would also say that according to Huber's lawyers about them, they made my local lawyers list because they may be competent in the courtroom, but they can't write a legal brief. And so I read their filing on my channel, and it's ludicrous. I mean, they're the ones that claimed that the police deputized Kyle. I mean, really, they actually make that claim in the actual lawsuit that the deputies that Kyle was deputized by the law enforcement, and it just got worse from there. It is absolutely stunningly stupid, but maybe they're better at other things, but writing, not one of them.
I would assume that their strategy is they think that will help them get it to go all the way to a trial by claiming stuff that it will make it look bad. Like, oh, wow, this is bad. We need to hear this in trial. I mean, that would be my assumption. It's some kind of strategy like that.
Well, I mean,
it's all about the optics.
And I have a different view on this kind of thing. But if I'm a judge, like your writing is really poor here, I'm throwing it out. You're supposed to be a professional. Don't send me this. You might want to go ahead and revise it, but I am not going to entertain a legal brief that's written, what looks written by a high schooler. But that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, the few court situations I've been in, the judges were exactly as you're describing. They don't have patience for that kind of thing. So it's interesting that that's in there.
And it blows my mind. They basically call him a hero in the first the introduction of this lawsuit or complaint.
In the fact section. They wrote that
Huber attacked Kyle. I've seen it with my own eyes. And it blows my mind how these people can now come after Kyle when he had to defend himself.
So I wanted to go ahead and first of all, did you have another question, Brian?
I probably have a lot of questions, but go ahead. I'll
okay.
I don't want to dominate the show.
No, it's fine. So the other thing I wanted to go over was that the people's obsession with the AR-15 and the presence of the AR-15, and it seems like the chronology of wrongdoing begins with these people when Kyle shows up with an AR-15, and that was why I put this little clip together of BLM rioters using an AR-15 on a police Bearcat.
You guys are instigating. You know you're instigating. Oh, they're going to shoot the gas off the top. Kick that shit back. Kick that shit back. Gas us. Gas. You're a fucking coward. Oh, yeah. Don't point it. I'm not pointing already. Gas! They're gonna deploy! They're getting out!
A fun fact, I'm standing over next to that building on that sidewalk. I have a video from the other angle.
Oh, you do?
I do.
I would love to have that if you would like to be willing to provide it. That would be pretty sweet because I throw this clip around all the time because people are obsessed with the issue of you brought a gun to a protest, you bring a rifle to a protest, you're there to kill.
To a peaceful protest.
Right.
And here's another thing, Johnny. I don't know if you noticed this for whoever read Rosenbaum's lawsuit, is Motley puts in there two things that I think. Well, if I were a judge, I'd dismiss the lawsuit just because, back in the day when you filed a lawsuit, you had to do it under oath. So you had to say, you had to sign the bottom and have it notarized. It was that whole lawsuit was an under oath statement. Now they got away from that. Lawyers can put lies in a complaint. And the two things that she said that I just think were the most wildly, egregiously false statements is one, she said the only people who had guns in Kenosha that night were white people, which, I mean, I'm sure, people who were down there could tell you that was just patently lie.
There was an ALM rioter at the dumpster fire argument who had a pistol in his hand and rapped
of course,
and
then
thought he was Ice Cube in Boys in the Hood or something.
And then another thing she said was that no business owners took up arms also. Just two things that she said in that lawsuit that were just unbelievably stupid, and I'm starting to wonder if she really believes this shit that comes out of her mouth or onto paper, or if she just thinks that people are gullible. I don't understand it.
I would suggest that's not even in my top five. Number one was the claim that Kyle was clearly violating the law that night. Did you not watch the trial?
Right.
Like she claimed in her lawsuit that Kyle was clearly violating the law by carrying his rifle around, even though the charges were dropped.
Hey, Nathan, show that picture one more time so I can blow you up on the screen. I'm sorry. You got to warn me when you're going to do stuff with your awesome art. and then we'll finish playing the last half of this, but it's like we're now pausing for Nathan identification. You're listening to V Radio and Liberty Unleashed today, along with Johnny Walker Dread. Let me blow you up 1 second.
Oh, that is blow me up. Wow.
This would be the African-American individual with the pistol I was referring to, standing next to the dumpster fire.
And this photo was actually Exhibit 117 in the Rittenhouse trial.
Right. Yep, but don't forget, only white people had guns.
Yeah, stupid.
Photographic evidence brought to you by PhotoChad. So let's go ahead and finish watching this so you guys can see just how stupid this escalates.
10-4 on gas! We're gonna gas! Yeah! Get ready to kick that shit. If you can, boot it back there. They all have gas masks on. Get ready. Gas masks on. Go back! Hey! Hey!
So that's from my series, Kenosha Was Not Peaceful. That's actually like part 3, and I'll play the other clip at some point this evening. But one of the things I feel is highly relevant about that particular clip is that when people say things like that the cops should have done something, like the cops should have done this, is that the same people that are trying to suggest that, like when I was arguing with Kevin Glowicki, he said the same thing. And I was like, you would not be okay with what the cops would have to do at that point. If you're firing an AR-15 at a police vehicle, there's a whole lot of people that are about to be dead. And then like they call the cops cowards or something, and then like he gets in front of the door of the Bearcat low ready. Like, what do you think he was going to do? Was he just going to start shooting cops on their way out of the Bearcat? So again, people want to know, why would you ever want to be armed in a situation like that? It'd be a better question to me, like, why the hell would you not be armed? Like, there's no freaking way, and the obsession with the AR-15 is this evil, like, emperor weapon or something, like as if, like, again, well, you had an AR-15, and if you brought an AR-15 to a protest, you meant to kill. So do these guys mean to kill? I mean, I think they believed they did. That was just him lining up in front of that Bearcat was one of the most G.I. Joe delusional situations I've ever seen in my life.
Right? It was like he was playing to the fantasy was all the way up to the point where it became reality, and he was like, what am I gonna do now? Right? It's like just sitting out there pretending like they're gonna have some kind of big moment against the cops when that never came to be.
Well, right.
Yeah,
And that, go ahead.
My favorite is those who say, well, Kyle could have used a handgun instead of an AR-15. Yeah, no, he couldn't.
Right. That would have been illegal, ironically. So
Yeah, and that's why I wouldn't make it long as a police officer. I'd be fired because I would have put my rubber bullet gun on fully auto, and I just would have hit those Antifa dudes right in the throat, one by one. Just rubber bullets to the face, to the nads, everywhere I could. And I'd be fired probably soon after that, but I'd have a fun, few hours. Gas masks, or those, what do they call them? Those tear gas canisters, I'd shove them up people's asses. The police, in my opinion, showed so much restraint by not shooting people like that little they/them dude with the AR-15 pointed at the Bearcat. They would have been 100% justified in putting 12 rounds in that guy.
Right.
I mean, yeah, the Bearcat is designed to stop armor, but if that would have been green tip, 223, there are probably some areas of that Bearcat that could have been penetrated.
Well, and that's also why when they complain about the militarization of the police when they get armored vehicles, I'm like, this is an armored vehicle. It doesn't kill you. In fact, the armored vehicle in that situation saved lives because as a consequence, the cops didn't have to get out and shoot that moron, which is what they'd have had to do otherwise. And if you're shooting an AR-15 at the cops, well, yeah, you've effed around. It's time to find out. They would have been well within their rights, like you said, just to get out. Well, you've shot at my car. You're going down. There would have been more police shootings. That's why it's like, there are other wild videos just like that were going on the whole evening. And it's like, you could put that riot down. You would not have been happy with what would have been done to do it. Go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say, let's not forget the irresponsibility of shooting that gun at that vehicle with the crowd around. I mean, that's just as irresponsible as you can get carrying a gun like that.
And by the way, guys, Ann is trying to come back. She was just having problems with her connection, as was obvious. So she's trying to switch computers. Hopefully she'll be able to come back and join us again.
And
for people that don't know, an AR-15, no matter what round you use, would go through about 6 or 7 bulletproof vests. Those vests that cops wear do not defend against AR-15 rounds that are just the 223 that Kyle had is just 0.001 of a millimeter or inch larger than 22. It's a very tiny weapon and a lot of power behind it.
What were you going to say, Nathan? I'm sorry. If you're not done, go ahead.
I did send you. Through Messenger. I did send you those videos.
Oh, awesome! Thank you very much. Let's see if I can pull them up.
So those that were part of the criminal case that testified there, are you going to be part of the civil case? Do you have to show up for that as well?
Who was that question towards? I'm sorry.
The people who were testifying at the criminal case, are you going to be called to the civil case?
I have no idea.
Nathan, what about you?
That's who just responded.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to be the subject of depositions because what all 3 lawsuits allege is basically that I worked hand in hand with the police, which is just stupid. It's not true. it couldn't be further the truth. And anybody that lives in this area, knows how ridiculous it is. So I'll probably be deposed by these lawyers, and that's going to be a fun couple of hours for me because I'm not the nicest person to idiot lawyers.
Well, I can't really blame you, and that the funny thing is like that was one of the things that was going through Grosskreuz's mind, according to his testimony, was that they had been told, apparently by Ryan Balch, that the cops had told them that they were going to push them towards them so that they could deal with them. And that got into Gage's head that Kyle and the Kenosha guard were working for the cops. And so when he told them to stop Kyle, his intention was to prevent him from getting to the police. His intention was to stop him from getting to the police. I have no idea what he thought he was going to do with him. Like, did he think he was going to kidnap him or something? Was literally the Antifa guys like just going to like round him up and head him off somewhere and tie him up and try to get the goods on him? It actually makes like Gage's motivations in the situation even worse, because at that point, if he thinks he's going to stop them, from getting to the cops, like, it's like, where does that escalate to next? So
if you look at the whole idea of a citizen's arrest, you're only supposed to detain a person until the police arrive. And yet you hear it all the time. Well, they were just trying to do a citizen's arrest by running behind him and trying to kill him with a skateboard. It doesn't work like that. So
I think it's called
one of the things that absolutely just drives me crazy about this whole thing is the complete misunderstanding of the law by the left. And I don't see the left. I mean, let's say anti-Kyles. The anti-Kyles just don't understand the law at all. And you cannot teach it to them.
Well, there seems to be an emotional response and no regard for the law. Anytime guns are involved, the left, as you call it, they don't care about all the other details. They just hate the guns, and the person holding it is a bad person.
But that's absolutely, take a look at the Austin thing where one of their people got killed at Garrett. I forget his name. All of a sudden, the fact that he was carrying an AK-47 is okay. And you're going to look at Crystal Kaiser, who carried a pistol to Randall Volar's house to kill him. And the fact that she was not legally allowed to have that pistol is not going to be a problem for them.
So I wanted to play another one because I wanted to get into specifically the issue of, once again, as I mentioned earlier, that the chronology of wrongdoing for most of these people seems to begin when Kyle shows up. And unfortunately, Ann is still having computer problems, because I would have loved to have got her commentary on it, because I know that this incident in particular was one of the things that motivated her to go to Kenosha.
She's trying to get in. She says she needs a new link. I don't know if you've
and I messaged her. I sent it to her email. So, but in any case, so this is there's some of my commentary in this, but it's not very long. So I got my hands on an extended version of the film of the elderly man who was struck and had his jaw broken while he was defending his property in Kenosha, Wisconsin. This was specifically the furniture store that was being looted and burned. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up again is that the version that I found also has the conversation that took place while the man was lying on the ground bleeding with a broken jaw.
This poor man got his business caught on fire. I'm sorry, sir. I'm very sorry about that, man.
Yeah, really.
Hey, I have nothing to do with that. I'm trying to stop this shit here. Dude, I'm gonna help this guy. I don't give a fuck if I get beat up.
Oh, look. Just leave it there. Look.
They just threw a bottle at this guy. Hey! 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 No! No! Sir! 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 Are you okay?
For those of you not familiar with this incident, this is part of the fiery but mostly peaceful protests after the police shooting in Kenosha. This took place the day before Kyle and Grambo and all of them arrived.
Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Turn his head, turn his head. He was just defending his business, that's all he was doing. And they walked up and fucked him up. Fucked him up. I have it all on video. All of it. He didn't deserve any of that. Any of it.
If you listen carefully in the background, you can hear them telling her that she needs to go home because she's pointing out that what they did was wrong.
This is just wrong, guys. Do you not see this? This is wrong. This is what's going to happen to every one of you when this goes nationwide. I don't think you realize this. Please, guys.
We're trying to protect ourselves.
Did you hear that? They're trying to protect themselves by burning down and destroying this man's business and assaulting him, even though he has nothing to do with their grievance.
We're trying to protect ourselves.
Hold on a second, let's blow it up. That one. That's what it looks like the next day, right?
Correct.
Right. All right, we'll go back.
That's the door that
Go
you
ahead.
see them run out of.
Nate, was that the mattress store on 22nd and 63rd?
Yes, it
Or where is that?
Yes, it was.
That's what I thought. All right, we'll shrink you back down. We'll go back to it because they say some more crazy stuff here.
Hey, you got alcohol in there?
You don't understand what terrifies these black men out here. They're not making it home to their family. Understand.
She doesn't understand. You see, they're targeting these innocent people and their businesses because some black men are not making it back to their families. You just don't understand. That's why we have to attack innocent people and destroy their property. Because that will change people's opinions of us and they'll stop racially profiling us as violent and destructive. Who's going to respect you when you attack innocent people and destroy their lives? Who's going to give you respect? Is it respect you want, or is it fear? You want people to fear you. That's really what you want. And the problem is, well, aside from the fact that that's, oh yeah, domestic terrorism to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, competent activists will tell you that fear is the source of racism. So making people afraid of you literally will create more racism. This is the reason why I completely oppose what is currently called racial activism. In one of my upcoming videos, I'm also going to be discussing why the current racial activism that is basically just actively hating white people will in turn scientifically provably cause still more racism. And you guys can check that video out in my list, but it's called Science Says That Social Justice Warrior, strategies actually lead to more racism and more bigotry. It's not a matter of opinion. It is actually, I go over all of the research. Super chat from Exelwright. The left still thinks citizens should stay home and watch their city burn rather than taking the more sensible position of don't attack armed people who don't want their city burned. Yeah, that's more or less the case. And it's the whole property over people thing, or not people over property, or as if you're just supposed to let it happen. And again, it's always from a position of privilege because these people aren't showing up at their houses to burn their houses down. They're not burning down their jobs, they're not destroying their lives. And as was pointed out on Twitter earlier, like some of the people who lost their businesses was like I think they were a Mexican immigrant family that built an ice cream shop that also served tacos. I mean, how cool is that? But that place got burned to the ground, and I don't think that they did anything to change anybody's opinion about police brutality by doing any of this. So,
right. It's just destabilization and crisis, it's just the mechanisms of subversion, man. It's just, it's right there when you see that, it's all manufactured, from the ground up.
Right.
Because that's why it doesn't make any sense that, why would you destroy property? Why would you do any of this stuff? They don't even know. They just, they're just out there to destabilize things, to cause a ruckus, to cause division, and they're being directed to do it. And, that entail creates a division, creates the the turmoil, the need for more government, the need for more security. You know, then it just furthers the narratives to stick with the establishment candidates, toe the line. All that stuff. It's all being funneled in one big direction towards this civil chaos.
With I think you said, Kevin, earlier that there was not the political leaders, mayor and some others weren't very strong, weren't very good leaders. What do you think? How would it have been handled if a strong leader was in there?
So I have said this many times. I watched the video of Jacob Blake being shot, probably 15 minutes after it happened, and I was with a friend of mine, and I looked at him and I said, "Kenosha is about to get crazy. There's going to be riots." Just as a layperson watching that video, I knew that there were going to be riots. So, a strong leader would have called mutual aid immediately. So that evening, mutual aid is like when you ask neighboring police departments, and eventually police departments all throughout the entire state came here. That wasn't done for several days. And I just want to remind everybody, so back on August 25th, 2020, the mayor, Democrat, county executive, Democrat, governor, Democrat. Donald Trump, who was president at the time, called the governor, offered federal assistance. The governor said no. So probably an ego game, right? Well, I don't need your help, Trump. Russia, collusion, Russia. Thanks anyways, bye, right?
Right.
So he refused help from the federal government. So one is you just have to not be an idiot. And I mean, it's common sense. You're offered help, you take it, right? It's better to have more help than to not have enough. And in Wisconsin, we're a very wholesome state. These police officers around are, I think we have 80 something counties, would love nothing better than to drive down to Kenosha and help their fellow, police officers against, scumbags, right? That wasn't done right away. It wasn't done for 2 days. It should have been done immediately. The sheriff also was a Democrat. We now have a strong Republican sheriff, but yeah. So I mean, every rung of the ladder up the political leadership scale were all lefties. Maybe they were afraid of offending the BLM Antifa group. They're afraid to see police officers and stuff like that. But it was, the problem was not identified or taken seriously until it was already too late. So the mistake was made even before August 25th, 23rd, when we had a lack of planning. Now we have, a consultant who came to Kenosha, a risk management consultant who's going to literally help us as a county write the book on what to do if this should ever happen again. What to do, who to call, when. The sheriff at the time said, "Oh, some lines were crossed, so we didn't call for help right away." Well, that's just another way of saying I suck. I screwed up. So yeah, I mean, the curfew wasn't even declared correctly, so every single citation for curfew violation was dismissed. So I could go on and on about all the bad decisions that were made, but the boots on the ground, the deputies, the officers, the sergeants, lieutenants, with the sheriff's department, with the police department, they were all out there risking their lives for shitheads. And so you're never going to hear me bash those men and women that were out there risking their lives. A lot of them don't live in this community, but they were protecting it anyways. But the leadership is where it was. You can have you've had wars where you have armies of 2-3 times the size of another lose because of poor leadership. I mean, it's crucial to have good central leadership, and we didn't have that, unfortunately.
So how is now in the aftermath? I mean, I know we talked about this the last time you were on my show, but it was a while ago. have things recovered at all economically? Did any of these people, were they able to rebuild their businesses, or like where are we at?
It's funny you say that because just yesterday, I'm sorry, 2 days ago, today's Sunday, so Friday night, I went with one of my attorneys that I work for. We went to B&L Furniture. They have a new location, Nate, the old Ukes on 52nd. It was Ukes Harley, and then it was a doggy daycare. Now it's B&L Furniture. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so it's a 2-story, huge, used and new furniture, office furniture store. It burned down. It was in the hood, right on 60th Street. They rented a big, beautiful building, and they're now thriving. So that's one good example. Unfortunately, there are some bad examples of businesses that never recovered, and people that the car source owners, those 2 guys who lied, remember, over and over about they didn't know anything. Oh, we don't remember what happened. I don't remember this, that. I don't remember. They were lying. It was obvious. Those guys, I think, had no insurance, and they weren't doing business by the book. So sometimes when you take risks like not having insurance, nobody thinks their car dealership's going to get firebombed, right?
Right.
Nobody thinks their house is going to burn down. But I have homeowners insurance. That way, if my house burns down, I'll get a new one. But they got screwed. They're still open. I couldn't tell you any more specifics than that. But a lot of these places where buildings burned down, you'll see green grass. The buildings have been raised. Now you have green space. You have buildings that have been built brand new, and you have 3-story government buildings being erected on top of these buildings that were burned and then later demolished. So you are seeing good progress, but you're also there's also those businesses who never recovered or lost motivation and just kind of went away, and people's retirements were jeopardized, and their ways of life just sad.
With all the Democrats that got replaced by Republicans, as you were talking earlier, was their handling of the riots there part of why they didn't get reelected? Was their terms up?
It was huge. So the police chief, who I respect, that I just don't think he was given the tools he needed. He retired. The sheriff decided not to run again. The mayor decided not to run again. The county executive decided not to run again. So those were all people that I strongly believe would not have had a chance because the riot was on the ballot. So the county board, okay, I'll just give you an example. The county board before the riots was majority Democrat by a lot, and the county executive was a Democrat. Now you have a Republican woman county executive. It's the first woman, first Republican, I believe, in the history of the county. And now you have the very first Republican-controlled county board that's ever been in Kenosha, and I believe that was a referendum on the riots. So now you have the leadership right now, like I said, that spent some money to get a plan together to see if if this happens again, what will we do? And I think elections obviously have consequences, and when governments screw up emergency responses, there are consequences for that too.
Any libertarians?
Unfortunately, Governor Evers. No libertarians, and those all those other than the sheriff are considered nonpartisan races where they don't declare a party. But it's one of those things everybody knows which is which. Just like with the Supreme Court races here in Wisconsin, there are clear liberals and clear conservatives, even though you won't see it on the ballot. A D or an R or an I.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the libertarians, because I remember at the pumps over at the gas station at one point, whoever was leading that group of armed men yelled "libertarians," like as if he was trying to organize that group around that name. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know anything about that. No, I don't.
Okay. Yep, I remember. It's in my doc, but I don't have a video on that on hand. However, I do have a video, very brief one, covering the issue of whether or not they knew you guys were coming to help them at the car source. So we'll give that a look. So now that the defense is rested, it's interesting to watch Twitter as more and more stuff keeps getting revealed that would have been helpful to the defense. This photo was used in the trial. And I would say that it's kind of evidence that the whole notion that the group of guys with the guns were white supremacists, considering they're standing next to this Indian business owner who's an immigrant. That's not exactly something white nationalists are known for doing. But that said, this is old news. Now let me show you the new news that proves that the car source owners lied. And no, I'm not talking about the equally valid video that came out of the two of them talking with almost perfect American accents when talking to the media, which was taken shortly after this. Speaking of which, Twitter has been an interesting place for the last few nights, as a lot of things keep getting revealed now that the defense is rested. For example, this. John Curtis just shared this on Twitter. Let's take a look. Nick Smith, Kyle Rittenhouse. I think that's Dominic. Oh, they're out in front of Car Source. I wonder who's on the other side of this van. Well, look at that. Huh. Whoops. So, yeah, they knew.
Yeah, can I comment on that a little bit? Because I've actually defended the Kendrys in one of my previous videos on this. I mean, they clearly lied. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They weren't even good at it. They didn't have much choice. And if they're, I mean, first of all, let's be clear. They were true victims of what happened. They've been wiped out financially from what I can tell. Although, Kevin, you're saying they're still open, so maybe things aren't so bad. Although they may have a lot of lawsuits pending. But, you know, they didn't own the business. It was owned by their father, the patriarch of the family. They come from a culture where those kids are not going to endanger the family for the sake of just being honest in court. And I am sure that the father said, don't you dare get on that stand and do anything to jeopardize our future. And so they did their best. They sucked at it, but they did their best to try to extricate themselves from this. I am sure that after the first night of rioting, they probably called their insurance company to stake a claim, and the insurance company told them to go pound sand. So you have to put yourself in their shoes. What are you going to do? You've lost a huge chunk of your business. Your dad is probably getting all over you. And now here comes some kids who say, hey, we can defend the business for you. I think a lot of people would say, I'll take anything, because the cops aren't going to do it. Who's going to defend the business if those kids don't? But then they didn't bank on Kyle shooting somebody. Now they're in a lot of trouble. If they go on there and they say the truth and say, yeah, we did bring those guys in to protect our business, they're now being named in that lawsuits. So I fully sympathize with injuries on this. And I think they've been truly dragged through the mud, and they have been hit hard financially. Kevin, do you have any comments?
Well,
because you kind of know the situation pretty well.
Here's the thing is, I don't disagree with the fact that they were victims. But here's the thing, Johnny. What if Kyle were to somehow have been convicted, and you're hearing now from a juror who says, you know, really what played a lot in my mind was, you know, those car source owners said they didn't want them protecting. You know, he was there protecting somebody's business that didn't want any part of him. Now what, right?
Oh, I get that. I get that. I mean,
they sold out a 17-year-old kid for their own business, for their own financial stake. I think they should have just took the fifth. They would have been well within their rights to take the fifth. Taking the fifth, nothing dishonorable with that, especially better than committing perjury, in my opinion.
Binger could have came in and said, well, we agree not to charge you for anything that you say. So I don't certain.
Yeah.
I mean, Binger could have made it to where they had to answer those questions.
Yeah, he could have, and they would have been in a better position having immunity.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I mean they would have been in a better spot, and they would have been all right. And the way I believe they ran their business plan was they had private investors. So if you had, Johnny, if you had 10,000 you wanted to invest, you'd give it to that family. They'd buy, let's say, 2 vehicles with your investment, and then once they sold the car, they'd split the profit with you. So I believe those cars were all privately owned by somebody else. So they were, after the riots and after all their stuff was destroyed, they were looking for the government to bail them out, and the government refused to.
I mean, this was actually
again, you can have sympathy with them, but
I think this is worth a really good show. In fact, Kevin, I think this would be a really good article.
Yeah.
Sure.
So Nathan, did you interact with them at all? Nathan, did you interact with the Carsos owners at all, or?
I did not. No.
Okay. Just it's interesting that to me, I kind of understand where Johnny's coming from. I also understand where Kevin's coming from. And at the end of the day, they kind of decided to go ahead and play dumb and pretend that they don't know how to speak English. And a kid's life was on the line, but at the same time, yeah, they lost a lot of money, but it still was kind of doing them dirty,
Yeah.
In fact, kid went to jail for the rest of his life because those guys pretended that they had no idea who he was. That would have really.
I don't know if I've revealed this yet to you guys, but I didn't reveal this earlier because I didn't want to have to testify. But those brothers asked me and a friend of mine to guard their business. So when those viral photos of me and my buddy, who is a Marine Corps veteran, downtown earlier in the day with their AR-15s, we walked right past the car source, and those guys asked us to guard their property. Hey, will you guys provide security for us? And we said, no, that's not what we're here for. So that's why I knew they were lying when they said they didn't ask anybody to protect their business. They were actively soliciting people. So that's
doesn't surprise me at all. But at the end of the day, what are they going to do? And that really comes down to why this becomes it's an interesting point for libertarians. It's an interesting point for really anybody who respects property rights, is that if the cops are not going to do anything, that's why Wisconsin law states you have the right to defend yourself, your property, or the property or person of someone else. It just blatantly says that in Wisconsin law. I went over that in my video multiple times because there were so many people who said, well, he didn't have the right to do this, or he didn't have the right to do that. And it just wasn't true. Go ahead.
You would think that'd be a God-given right. You don't need a law to tell you you're allowed to do that.
Well, right. It's just that they've tried to say things like he was trying to pretend to be a cop, or he was trying to impersonate a cop, or he was trying to impersonate a security personnel, or some other nonsense. But it doesn't make any of those qualifiers in Wisconsin law. It just openly says you have the right to do this for yourself, for your property, or for another person and their property. It spells it out plain and simple. In my debates with Paul Katz before he turned around, and became a total Kyle supporter, people like that, that was what it was about. Or a non-lawyer, got videos going back and forth with him, because he said, well, he's not a law enforcement official. I'm like, yes, I know, but the Wisconsin statute makes it clear you don't have to be. And situations like this are literally the reason why people need to be armed. It's why I'm armed. It's why, people like Brian are armed, is that inevitably, whether you're anti-police or not, even if you're pro-police, the cops can't be everywhere, And the funny thing is it was cop friends of mine who told me I should get armed because they can't possibly respond to everything. And then you're in a situation like this where they're literally not allowed to. So what's supposed to happen? You're just supposed to let people show up and hurt anyone they want, kill anyone they want, and it's one of the things that and we'll probably get to that before we're done. But what struck me when I was doing my documentary was the beginning, was that the argument between the Kenosha Guard or the Libertarians or whatever they were calling themselves at that moment at the gas station and the BLM rioters over the dumpster fire. And there was a large, like as in, like big black woman there arguing with them, like, aren't you guys with us? Aren't you with us? Because she was pushing for the idea that they needed to light that dumpster on fire and destroy things. The whole key argument between those two groups of people was that one group of people wanted to burn everything down and destroy everything, and the other group of people was interfering with that. And Rosenbaum's motivation at that point was that somebody put out his dumpster fire. Like that's what we're arguing about. And the alt left, which is what I've come to call just the crazy left, like it's not just about healthcare or college for them. It's nonsense like this. They don't ever want to spit it out. But the reality is they seem to think that burning down your neighborhood is like something you're entitled to do if you're upset with the government. Like they think they're entitled to that right. And anybody who interferes with that should go to jail. That's how they really put it. That's why they say Kyle should have gone to jail. And it doesn't matter if anybody attacked him. They don't care about any of that. They cared about doing what they were doing. And when you get to the really crazy communist types, they think if they destroy enough private property, somehow it'll lead to the destruction of capitalism. Like that's what they're hoping will ignite. We dealt with the same crap at Occupy. They were hoping that Occupy was going to be the catalyst to finally give them their grand communist revolution. And, so obviously that's not going to happen. And the people that are behind that are not competent enough to, fight their way out of a kindergarten, let alone ever fight the cops. But they get emboldened by the notion that, well, I'm really tough. I threw bottles at cops who've been ordered not to shoot me. We're totally capable of fighting the cops, but as I look back on this, it's like it's been 3 years and there's so many different things that people continue to say, as Nathan brought up earlier, that are just not true. It's all stuff that we've debunked multiple times over and over and over again. And people still believe this shit. Like they still like, wait, he didn't shoot any black people. Like, wait, you mean he didn't cross state lines with a rifle? Or wait, you mean that wasn't even necessarily relevant? And there are people who still believe that shit to this day. I just had it out with a guy who was going over because those are the ones, like I mentioned earlier, who invent his motives. Like they claim that he was there to kill, he was there to hurt people, and I play that video for him, and they have no answer at that point other than to sling insults because they're obviously wrong. Like if that was what he wanted to do, there were a lot smarter ways he could have easily pulled that off. I mean, we still have gunshots in the videos that are not accounted for that we don't ever even know who fired. Like if you wanted to kill people that night, it would have been extremely easy to do it and nobody would have ever known who you were. Like it's just crazy to me. So anyway, go ahead and I think Johnny, were you pulling up because you wanted to talk?
If somebody else needs to say something, go ahead.
Okay.
My question, I guess 3 years later, Nate or Kevin, anybody talk to Kyle, know him, know his family and talk to him? Is he able to live a normal life? Does he get to walk around the street without being accosted?
I'm going to take the fifth on that one.
I'm going to plead the fifth on that one as well.
All righty then.
Here.
Not a good question, I take it.
No, it's a good question, but I think his business is his own, and I guess that's all. That's as far as I'll go with it. And he's still got a battle ahead of him. Unfortunately, I mean, hopefully these cases get dismissed. But anything's possible in the court of law. Especially in Milwaukee, there'll be Milwaukee jurors. But I would imagine it's not been easy for him. I'll just say that.
What I will say on my behalf.
Go ahead.
What I will say on my behalf, I am friends with him. But that's about all that I will say publicly.
Okay, no problem. I mean, engaging by social media, I know he's got a lot of supporters, but he's got a lot of haters, and I mean, it probably can't be easy walking around in public when you've got now that familiar, and you've got the people who, as we've talked about, don't care about the facts. They just got their emotional outburst over this. So I was just curious on what it was like 3 years later for him. But the one thing that I think as we talk about riots and the police brutality is the soft targets. From the days of Rodney King, I never understood why people went and burned down their own neighborhoods and not go to the source, but the source is heavily armed and can fight back, so their neighborhoods are considered soft targets. Seems to be the only thing I can reason out of why you would do that. Go destroy the businesses and the stuff in your neighborhood rather than go straight to the source of what you're pissed at.
Well, I have a few answers for that from when you can get them to say the quiet part out loud. Aside from Antifa believing that if they can destroy all the property, that they can cause the collapse of capitalism. If you talk to a militant BLM activist, they will tell you that, well, we burned down those businesses because they all belong to white people. You might remember that viral video of the black activist screaming, "We don't own anything," like going on this big rant about why they destroyed everything. But they honestly, and it's like one of them just flat out told me on Twitter, like, well, we want to replace those businesses with black businesses. And I'm like, okay, when is that going to happen? And it's not that black people can't own businesses or shouldn't, but that's never going to happen. Nobody invests in these communities. That's why Los Angeles is still a cesspool. And it's pretty evident to me that when you start to look at what's going on as far as to like what the tactics have been, what the strategies as far as like activism have been, you start to wonder, because black activists are being convinced to systematically undo the civil rights movement. Like now they want segregation, now they want stigma about race, interracial marriage. Now it's like one step at a time. They just keep taking away more and more of them. And the Martin Luther King is somebody that they don't want to talk about anymore. I actually got in an argument with Martin Luther King's daughter on Twitter about this, because she keeps saying, well, they're misconstruing what my father said. I'm like, your father said, I will continue to condemn riots because they cause more problems than they solve. That's not a paraphrase. That's not me twisting his words. That's what he said, and then I played the video of him saying it over and over and over again. And she eventually just stopped trying because she looked stupid at that point. But other people in the Twitter still said, we don't need a white person to explain Martin Luther King to us. I'm like, okay, do you have some other magical melanated definition for I will continue to condemn riots because they cause more problems than they solve? Like, if I had more melanin, would I understand how that actually means go burn things down? There was no argument for that. And it really, at the end of the day, all it's managed to do is it creates more poverty, more unemployment, more crime, and as a consequence of that, more police shootings, inevitably. It's not helping anyone. And I'll leave this with the other point that comes to mind before I play this next video, is that they really want us to talk more about the Tulsa race massacre. And that was a group of racists destroying their property, and that they claimed that that was the beginnings of black wealth, and that if they had just been allowed to continue to develop that, then black people would be wealthy today. And I'm like, okay, so let me understand something. You really want us to talk about that story, and I think that's important too. But why do you think that the racists went and destroyed your property instead of destroying their own? Why did they do that? It's like they understand and they recognize that they're creating poverty in their own communities, but do they? Like, they don't seem to put the two things together. Like, and to me, if you really are concerned about poverty and crime and all, and all of that in your own community, destroying your community is the last thing that you would ever do. And again, not in a matter of opinion, scientifically proven. Los Angeles's economic recovery, what there isn't, because the place is a cesspool and it just keeps getting worse. And anywhere these riots happen, there's a huge economic downturn. So they're not helping anyone. It's not going to create any better situations. It's going to make the whole situation worse. So anyway, does anybody want to comment on that before I play the last video?
Yeah, I'd like to say that they destroy because they like to destroy. These are just vandals. There's no higher philosophical purpose in what they're doing. That's the reason why they don't care about who they attack. They just like to burn things. And, it's just a a mob-infested vandalism.
I'll add to that. I'll add to that.
Yeah, you're right there.
I'll say that at the ground level, yeah, there's a lot of people that are attracted to that kind of thing and are want to be part of something like that. But still, at a higher level, these groups are being formed, they're being funded, they're being spun up, they're being directed. Go here on this day, right? There's some kind of organization there that's directing these events, and if we want to stop the events, we should take a hard look at how these things start from the beginning, at the root. And all the useful idiots, they're always going to be there, right? There are always going to be people that can suck into it. But causing more poverty in different areas just leads to more crime and leads to more people that are willing to go out and do this stuff, and more division and more hatred towards one another. It's all manufactured from the ground up. I don't think that any of these things are naturally occurring. I think they're spun up. I think they're guided, they're directed, and they're intentional.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And like why was Joseph Rosenbaum there? Why was Joshua Zeminski there? Why was Gage Grosskreutz there? Why was Anthony Huber there? Like moths to a flame, they saw a environment in which they could do the things they love to do, like light stuff on fire, beat people up, and they knew that they were not going to be held accountable because there was no accountability. There's too many of them and too little police. So it was all opportunity, and there's evil in this world. We all have to realize that there's bad people in this world, and they wanted to do bad things, and it was like back in the Chicago riots when the Democratic mayors had balls and they said shoot to kill. Well, that stopped the riots pretty damn quickly. Who wants to be that person getting shot? I mean, I'm not saying we should shoot to kill, but we're certainly on the other side of that, where we're trying to be gentle and hug, people that are burning down buildings, and that old man having to get his jaw wired shut. It's just crime of opportunity. Well, it's there. Let's go. They weren't there to preach for Zeminski. The guy's racist against black people. He wasn't there to advance race relations. He was there to cause crime, destruction, mayhem, because he knew he was going to get away with it. That's all.
Yeah, I would also say that the people chasing Kyle that night, he's running to the police. They can see the police in the distance. They know where the police are. They know fully well where he's going. They were chasing him down because they saw a political opponent on the run. They saw a weak person. I'm sorry, Kyle, but in their view, you're running away from them. And like a cheetah, if you got these animals, right? And they see something running, they chase after it. It's instinct. And so they saw the opportunity to get some blows in on a political opponent. That darn pesky AR-15, though, got in the way of it.
So does anybody have an answer here for this, as far as why are so many comparing Kyle to OJ, but fewer comparing him to Bernard Goetz? I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah. That's the subway shooting in New York many, 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 many years ago.
Oh, okay.
He shot like a mugger on the train, right?
A whole bunch of them.
And he was the nerdy looking guy with the glasses, right? The programmer or whatever.
Yeah, he was very nerdy, and they were carrying sharpened screwdrivers. And basically, they got on the train. It's been a long, long time. And Bernhard Goetz said some stupid things after the trial and whatever, but it's been a long time. The reason why they're comparing to OJ is the whole, well, OJ got released, therefore you can't always trust jury verdicts. In this case, it's the same. It's not the same. In OJ, all they had was circumstantial evidence. It was strong, but it was circumstantial. In Kyle, we have eyewitnesses and we have video of the actual events. So to say that it's like OJ is ludicrous. All 12 jurors saw what happened on video. They heard from witnesses that said what happened, and they all agreed it was self-defense. This is not like OJ.
So I wanted to go ahead and play one more, and this is just raw footage of what happened at the car source, like basically right before Kyle got there. And I wanted to kind of bring this up as debunking another myth, is that they always claim that all of the damage and looting and destruction is always done by white supremacists in disguise. So here we go. Some white supremacists in disguise in Kenosha.
Move away from the car.
Hey, don't set it on fire. Yeah, let me get one of these bitches. Yeah, he recording you.
Hey, bro, who are you with? Who are you with? Kenosha.
You're with Kenosha?
All right, can you not film that? No, I'm filming this, man. You guys have been burning my town down.
Are you
I agree
fucking
with what
kidding?
you're
You
doing,
fucking
but
cop?
yeah, I'm a cop. Dumb shit.
Not you fucking trying to film people doing shit. That's a fucking cop. That's a fucking cop. You can't do it. You want to fucking people while they're doing shit. Hey, somebody break that motherfucking camera. Hey, a police officer.
No, I look like a fucking cop. Jesus Christ.
Fuck you, bro. BLM is bitch, bro. That's Black Lives Matter. That's building lives matter, bitch. Where you get it, bro? That's fucking orange. Fucking white bitch. Shut this bitch down. Where are you? Get out of there, boy. Whoa.
You killing people, man?
Well, that was, there's more to it.
You killing people, man?
Hey! What the fuck you doing, bro? That's a goddamn shot! No justice!
Yeah, I do fall back just a little bit. That's right. Just saying. Even for me, I didn't really.
Dude, I'm with the cause, but this isn't fucking. This isn't gonna help nothing, man. It's gonna fucking hurt it.
Dude, it's like, oh, you're filming. It's got fucking on. It's like, oh, I don't fucking film. It's talking to him. That's why I was trying to tell him, you know, you gotta get back just a little bit. I mean, target the right shit at least. Don't fucking just talk. Hey, between the two groups, you got them and you got Antifa. You feel me?
Yeah.
The white boys that are yelling at you, those are Antifa.
So anyway, let me pull that back up. So yeah, definitely not mostly peaceful. And in addition to that, obviously, wasn't all white supremacists in disguise. So I have to admit the Antifa cuck who said, "You freaking white guy," like he was literally a white guy telling the guy you're a white guy or something to that effect. But and when you look at that video, it's kind of chilling, like, especially for somebody who made a documentary about it, like, because you almost like feel the electricity because maybe 20 seconds later is when Kyle walks up. I mean, I don't know for sure, but like all of my video sense, because you watch all this stuff, you start to get like a virtual reality version of it in your head. Because in order to make my documentary, I had to fuse together all these videos and try to get a picture of where Kyle was at any given time. And so it wouldn't have been too much longer after that. And then you see literally the black truck, that was on fire, that the Zeminskis end up by, and then Rosenbaum. So like, I don't know, like when that was up there. I do know one of the videos that I had where you hear the, black gentleman saying, that was Antifa, man, he says that again later, and that's when you can literally see them walking up, and then you hear the girl go, "Oh, he's got a gun, he's got a gun." That's how much I watch this stuff, is I've got the like whole soundtrack stuck in my head. But again, not peaceful, and not just, white supremacists in disguise, not just instigators who are supposedly racist who are trying to make them look bad. It was, and that was even more evident at the dumpster fire argument, because there was, like I said, it was the large black woman who was making the argument that they needed to go ahead and, just be allowed to go ahead and burn the gas station down. It's like, so, and 3 years later, none of this has improved race relations. None of this has improved anything in regards to like anything that they thought that they needed to improve. But anybody who studies the statistics in question already knows that there is not an epidemic of people of color being shot by the cops. In 2019, 259 people of color, meaning black specifically, were shot by cops. 13 of those were unarmed, and that's not a number adjusted for justified shootings. And that generally, on a year-to-year basis, on about 1,000 people get shot by cops overall. Again, not adjusted for justified shootings. Meanwhile, criminals killed like 24,000 in 2019. Like, I have all these statistics in my Truth About Police Shootings video. But if you get told over and over again that something is happening constantly, and if you have an infinite amount of space and time to be able to pull your videos from, to act like something is happening all the time, like, because it's an infinite space. And what I mean by that is they can go back to police shooting videos from, I don't know, 1998, and then just put them all together in a big long stream, and make it look like, you see, this is happening everywhere. And I remember the consciousness, because of this movement, still has created this bizarre lack of understanding of the situation. And I remember not long ago, there was a viral video because there was one of those debate bro streams on Twitch. And, one of the participants said, like, we're losing thousands of people every day. And the rest of the stream literally turned on him and went, dude, if that was true, then the entire race would be exterminated in a year. Like it's just not true. But they spit that stuff out because that's what they've been led to believe. And it hasn't created anything other than experimenting with defunding the police, which is certainly not working. And meanwhile, one of the things that I would say, as we're almost done for the night, that comes to mind is I had a friend of mine who used to go to these protests all the time, and he's a black man, so people say things in front of him that they wouldn't otherwise say. And I asked him what kinds of people wanted to abolish the police. And he's like, well, they tend to come from two different categories. I was like, well, who are they? He's like, well, one is people who are utterly naive about crime. Like, they think they know the hood because they drove through my neighborhood once to go to like a rock concert or a club or something. They've never seen a drive-by. They've never been to a crack house. They don't understand what it's like to be here. And especially, and he agreed with me about this because I had the same problem. I'm like, if you're worried about the police in the ghetto, I call the cops and it takes 2 hours for them to get there. They're not even relevant to the issues as far as the violence in the situation, right? So anyway, and I asked him what the other group was, and he said criminals, meaning the ones who want to abolish the police. And I was like, I chuckled. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, criminals as in people I grew up with or I just knew were lifelong criminals. He's like, of course they wanted to abolish the police. And, so coupling that together, he actually had watched my video and he said, "You don't think it's like funny that of the 3 people that Kyle happened to interact, they were all like lifelong criminals?" So anyway, I want to open up the floor to you guys' final comments for the evening. We've been at this a little over 2 hours. I want to thank everybody for coming on tonight. So first of all, Nathan, did you have any comments like now that it's been 3 years? Has anything new or interesting happened to you because of this? Like what's going on with you?
Real quick, I did see someone in the chat ask about how Dominic Black is doing, and I will say he's doing pretty well. I was just with him over this past weekend. We were out on a lake on a boat with his family. He is doing well, and I just wanted to give that update to everyone.
Cool.
As for me, I will be coming out with a book very shortly, The Kenosha Unrest. This is the third and hopefully the last proof copy that I have to do. I'm hoping to have it out within the next couple of weeks. I will be mentioning it on Twitter, as well as I just been trying to get my life back to normal. Trying to get my how do I explain it? Long story short, I'm trying to get my life back to normal and just move on from this. I made a lot of new friends, a lot of new family. I'm very close with Kyle's family. I'm very close with Dominic's family. Both of their families basically have become my own. Like I said, this changed. I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of family that don't talk to me no more. So their families became like a second home to me, and I really appreciate everything that they have done for me, from the friendship wise to always being able to talk to them. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, and as they know, I will always be there for each of them, including Kyle and Dominic, as well as their families. And I cannot go into details due to some contracts, but I would keep an eye open. I'm sure there will be a documentary coming out very shortly. I know we start rolling things by the end of this year. We should be filming.
So make sure that you let us know about that. I did put your Twitter in the description for anybody who wants to, keep up with you, because I assume when your book's finally done, you're going to announce it there, right?
Yes, correct.
All right. Well, good. So how about you, Kevin? How are things with the Kenosha County Eye? I've been I link to your articles all the time. Is there anything new coming up around the horizons? And how has this situation impacted with you 3 years later?
I've moved on. I have a young family. I have a 13 and 14-year-old, happily married for 15 years this year, November. Everything's great for me. Still a private investigator, security contractor. Kenosha County Eye is on the side, like I said earlier, now up to an average of 120,000 visitors every month. So I got advertising going on there, supplementing my income a little bit. For those of you asking in the chat over and over, no, I don't have an OnlyFans. I won't be starting one anytime soon. Okay, that was supposed to make you guys laugh. Got it.
I was looking at the chat
good.
going
That's good.
what? Is that really happening?
Take your word for it.
But yeah, everything's going great with me. Kenosha's doing well. We got an important election coming up this spring for when I elect a new mayor. It's good to see and talk to all you guys.
Yeah, it's good to see you too, man. And your work, that you did there, especially it's funny is that when I texted Good Logic, and I said, "Hey, Zeminski's arrested," he's like, "How did you know?" I was like, "Dude, do you remember who you're talking to?" Because of course I know, right? But the reason I knew Kevin was because I keep track of
I'm
your.
getting ready to Coley. I'm getting ready to do my Coley. I'm getting ready to do my exit here.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was talking to my son. I thought I was on mute. I was just gonna tell him to keep quiet for a second because I was.
No, that's fine. Well, let me just finish my point. Was just say, if you guys want to know what's going on in Kenosha, make sure you check out the Kenosha County Eye, because the reason I knew that Zeminski finally got arrested was because Kevin did. So, all right, did you need to go ahead and Winning? I know you didn't really get to talk as much as I would have liked today. But we'll do another show together later. But if you guys haven't checked out Winning Reality's channel, please make sure that you do. He does good content, a friend of the show. And maybe one of you guys can go on his show at some point. It'd be nice. I know that Liberty Unleashed was on your show recently, my co-show host. And, do you want to go ahead and tell anybody what you've got coming up soon?
But yeah, just the shows that I mentioned at the beginning. I do a Tech Reality Tuesday show at 10 p.m. with a Space Power Monkey. I do Unveiling Reality on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. And that's just a deep dive. I usually have guests on for that. We do deep dives on the cycle of abuse that's going on in this society that enables a cycle of control, and all these things in between, the establishment narrative, the subversion in society. We kind of just break it all down, get to the root causes, and then we try to work on the solutions, right? So on Thursday night, I got Repairing History together with Gary Lamb, and we do a show based on the work of Thomas Sowell to replace the omitted parts of history to get things right. And we talk about bridging the gap and healing division between the races. So we're trying to tackling that issue there. It's really unique content. Come check it out. And on Winning Saturday nights, I usually have guests on and do topics and just have fun. And hopefully I'll have a good show coming up. I'm still booking this week. So I do appreciate you having me, V, man. You're awesome. I love everything that you're doing. We talk a lot. You're a good friend. And I really, I love the work that you're doing. And Liberty Unleashed, man, it was great having you last night. Thank you so much for coming on, dude. It was a pleasure meeting you. And we got to do that again soon. That was a lot of fun.
Sure.
And for everybody else, yeah, I haven't met Johnny Walker, man. Awesome to meet you. Great to be here with you, sir. And Nathan, man, you're a total Chad, dude. Keep up the great work, man. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Completely, man. And Kevin, man, great to meet you. You as well, man. Best of luck with what you're doing. And thanks everybody in the crowd, man, for being here tonight. Support.
Yeah, and you give shout out to Gary Lamb. He's a friend of the show too. It's been a while since I did any content with him, but we play video games together sometimes on his stream. I was playing Star Wars Old Republic with him. But yeah, he's a good guy. He got shared by Trump a long time ago, and so he got 60,000 subscribers or something, and then they shadow banned him so hard that he'll get way lower viewers than he really deserves. Gary Lamb is awesome. So if you haven't checked out Gary Lamb's channel, you should definitely do it. So that brings me to Johnny. What's going on with you and your channel? Do you got anything new coming up?
Well, I have my OnlyFans account, unlike Kevin. It has fewer subscribers than my own channel, which is astonishingly low. I can't understand why. I will say that Dominic Black is doing very well. I did hear from him. I mean, I didn't hang out on a boat like Nathan did, but I did hear from him, and I'm so glad to hear that he's doing well. I do have some interesting things coming out. I found a lawsuit filed about a Denver issue in a bank that makes Kimberly Motley look like Clarence Darrow. So you'll have to watch my channel and get ready for that one. It's absolutely insane. I also have been hammering on Rashad Ritchie a lot lately. I can't stand the asshole. And if y'all hate Rashad Ritchie, tune into my channel, because I have a whole bunch of videos where I tear him apart. And he turns out he just wrote a physics book. And I'm a physicist, so I am absolutely
Mr. Diploma Mill is writing books.
Yeah, amazingly, it's self-published, of course, but yeah, he's written a quantum field theory book. Unfortunately, he doesn't, and he clearly does not understand even the basics of physics. So I'm going to thrash on that a little bit, and then I've got some more Kyle Rittenhouse stuff coming out. So the Johnny Walker Dread Show, go in and subscribe to my channel.
If you guys haven't checked out his series about Rashad Ritchie, it's just like Rashad Ritchie is like one of the bigger names on the Young Turks, and he's one of the more despicable quote unquote journalists there. And Johnny uncovers that basically his entire educational background is a fraud. It's all garbage. And the fact that he gets away with it. I mean, if Johnny had a bigger audience, this would be viral all over the place, because there's enough people who hate the Young Turks, but it's tough to fight the signal. So And then obviously, Brian, thank you for joining me on this show. Obviously, we usually do a show every Sunday. Brian and I met each other way back when, in 2008 during their whole Ron Paul revolution thing. And, he's still gotten his channel back up. So if you guys haven't subscribed to his channel, you should totally check him out. He's definitely one of my recommended people. Do you have anything up and coming on your channel, Brian?
I'm still trying to get my documentaries done. And then once I can get my my background set to something permanent to where I can do it as a studio, I should start putting out some more frequent videos. I would love to get with Johnny Walker, as we've talked about in the past, and do some second amendment
content. I just keep forgetting.
Yeah, it's all right. It's not a problem. And so other than that, hopefully I can get my mini documentaries out soon. It's been great to talk to everybody and meet you, Nathan and Kevin. Nathan, I just sent you a Twitter follow. Found that link in Neil's description and sent it out there. And When in Reality, I appreciate you having me on the show last night. It was a good time. I always love reminiscing about Ron Paul days. It's one of my favorite subjects. And as usual, Neil, it was a great show, a great topic. Really enjoy interacting with everybody out there in the chat. That's, as I said before, that's one of my favorite parts of this show is the chat. So I thank everybody for tuning in. I thank the guests for coming on today. They've been great guests, and it's a great topic, something worth talking about, even if it's 3 years later. I think we need to keep this out there and keep the conversation going. So I appreciate it. And get out there, check out the links in Neil's description so you can follow everybody on Twitter, like their shows, obviously smash that like button. And definitely, Kevin, we look forward to that book coming out. I'm going to definitely purchase a copy as soon as you say we can.
Well, I don't know. Kevin, were you also writing a book, or did you mean Nathan?
No, not me. I'm not literate enough.
I was looking at Nathan and I said Kevin, but I meant Nathan.
It's okay. You're new.
Oh, real quick.
Go ahead.
Ann just texted me not long, but a couple paragraphs. She wanted me to read it. It's her kind of exit. She says she's doing well. She this weekend she got done water skiing with Johnny Depp. Her OnlyFans is now up to 500,000 subscribers. She's now living part-time in Beverly Hills, and she is building a new house in New York. And she's working on the Trump campaign for 2024. And she just got her new Smith & Wesson 357 signed by Charlton Heston. That's what she wanted me to update you guys with.
Wow,
Cool.
that would be something.
I'm sure that that was. I remember discussing this. Is like how many of these witnesses from the trial got all this extra attention. Like all the ladies wanted some of the photo chat, and there were men that were asking.
You wouldn't
if
believe
Grambo
the
was
things
single.
that were sent to me. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh my goodness. So anyway, super chat again from Graham. Finally, why didn't Kimberly Motley list preferred pronouns engage in JoJo's lawsuits? Came across another lawsuit she filed where she did that. I have no idea. The lawsuits. Yeah, that's just like I didn't even know. It's so hard to keep track of that stuff. So thank you guys for coming on today. And
Neil,
go ahead.
before, can I do a shout out? I think you have a viewer, a reader, or whatever. Jacob Peets, I think, has been blistering us with some really solid stuff all night.
Yeah, he's awesome. I actually I got him from Good Logic. He watched me over there. Okay. Jacob Peets is always awesome to have. And Jacob, if you haven't subscribed to all of the channels here, I think that you'll like all of them. I mean, you like Strategic Eyes. I invited him to be on today. Unfortunately, he was busy, but Strategic Eyes is another one of my favorite channels. Neo Unrealist, if you guys remember Neo Unrealist, the New Yorker, would cover all kinds of stuff. He got kicked off of YouTube. He is now only on Rumble. They just straight up deleted his channel. So if you guys know me because of Neo, make sure you make your way over to Rumble to check him out. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight, and I'm still working on a documentary called OK Groomer, which is going to be just kind of cutting to the chase and getting to the truth about what's going on with that issue. I will be making some other content. I've just basically I've also been kind of busy in my real life here. The wrestling season's about to start, and I'm a coach, so I have to go through all the work for that. But again, thank you everybody for tuning in, and I'll talk to all of you just really briefly off the air. And if you want to support this channel, I am the coaching job is basically volunteer. So if you want to help me, you can go to Patreon, PayPal, Subscribestar. I also have Venmo and other things. If you're more comfortable with that, just reach out to me. We can do that. I appreciate all of the support you guys have given me over the years. During the course of me making those documentaries, a lot of people asked me if they could send me money, and I told them to send them to Kyle's Defense Fund instead. Because at the time, you know, especially back then, it was really a motive about like, I don't like doing this for money, because what I've found is that if you do it for money for long enough, it starts to affect the quality of your work, and you start to become kind of, I would say, captive to your audience, which is why when I started to rebuild my audience, I wanted to make sure that my audience understood you're not always going to agree with me. And I hope that that's why you're here.
You can send the money that Neil doesn't want to me.
Yeah, you can send it all to Brian. He's a libertarian, like anarcho-capitalist guy, so he loves his money. So, all right, guys.
And
Thanks.
Neil won't let
everybody.
me do an OnlyFans page.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
No
Talk to you
problem.
guys
And
soon.
thanks again to Joanne Grambo coming on tonight. I'm sorry that your internet wasn't working great, but thank you for continuing to participate in the chat.
Grambo,
We love
I'll
you.
call you.
Yep, Nathan's gonna call you. You better take that call because he's a hot
This
item. All the
weekend.
girls want him. So you guys take care and good night.
All right, take care.